brand new building on that block. The whole thing was in an old part of town, and not much life could be seen around. He kind of liked that, since an empty neighborhood is a noiseless neighborhood. George was looking for some peace and quiet for quite some time, and nowhere else in that huge and dense city he would have found so much of that. It sure was a small place, but for those interested enough to ask, he used to say it was enough space for just him. The building was white and had green glassed windows that reflected the emptiness around. Just a bunch of teared apart old small buildings that once sheltered the poorest part of town. When prices rose like a kite on a strong wind, a couple of decades ago, people just abandoned everything behind. Now, with a few new buildings around, the mayor hopes the place will become the upcoming neighborhood. But I hope it doesn't. George used to say it out loud to himself whenever the politician came up on TV. As he sat by himself on the balcony, lighting the first cigarette of that night, he couldn't stop thinking about the body he saw at work. As a cop, you really get to see a lot of violent scenes, but it's not that common to see a child like that. Whoever did that to a kid was seriously damaged. The crime scene was actually close to his neighborhood. The boy was covered in blood, laying on the ground of the living room in a small old house. His arms and legs were separated from his body and couldn't be found. Everyone was almost certain that it was the work of a serial killer. But that was the first body with that MO, so they didn't just want to assume that. The wind on the balcony was a bit cold. George was just thinking about going inside, but there was still half a cigarette to go. His eyes weren't focusing on anything particularly. They just wandered off the buildings in front of him as his mind played on repeat the images he saw earlier. When, for a second, he stopped. He wasn't really sure what he was seeing. From a distance, it looked like two red lights on an old dirty window on the smaller building in front of his. But he was sure it wasn't just that. He could feel it. The two red lights were eyes, and they were pointing directly at him, watching him. George couldn't stop looking. He got up, and the lights went off. Not the red ones, but all the others. The whole neighborhood in the dark. The only lights were the red ones, and the one from the flame of his cigarette, almost done. Without moving his eyes away from those lights, he got his arm up, taking the cigarette to its last drag. When it was close to his mouth, the whole thing burned out in a flame, right in front of him. What the fuck was that? He shouted. Lights came back, and the two red ones now were gone. But he could see what it looked like a woman. He could see her hair, long and dark. Something about what just happened caught his attention. She was wearing a red dress, clearly an old one, some old shit. She turned around. Holy shit, he said. Her eyes were back on his direction, and he could see where the two red lights were from. Her. She walked backwards into darkness, but using her skinny left arm to call him as an invitation to come over. Then she disappeared inside. He had to go. He had to go after her. He was a cop, for God's sake. Anyone that knew George would answer in a second that he would. And so, he did. He got up as quickly as he could, put his shoes on, got his gun, and went after what he saw. George knew it inside that what just happened meant something. When he got out of his building and crossed the road, he looked up. The place was a real mess. That smell of human that only those who have been to a prison can tell. But fuck it, he had to see what was in there. And he got in. Everything dark as hell. The moonlight sliced the thin white dust on the air as it came in through the holes on the wall. He went straight to the stairs. As he went up, a step at a time, he could smell something burning. Then he heard her calling. He got his gun out. He had to be careful. And when he finally got to the second floor, there she was, facing the wall. George noticed the kid. The same one he saw at the crime scene was on the floor, next to her. He couldn't take his eyes off that kid. How did he get here? The woman started to walk towards him, but George didn't even realize it until she was already next to him. He could feel the heat coming from her. He wanted to run, but his body didn't respond. He was paralyzed. He couldn't see much of her either. She whispered something in his ear and held his arm. George screamed from the pain. Her hand was as hot as fire, burning his skin. He could feel it melting over his bone. He woke up on the balcony with the cigarette burning filter in his hand. But it all felt so real. The name she spoke was stuck in his head. Merga Bien. Merga Bien. He got up and went inside to search for what that could mean. Without noticing, under the long sleeve,